I think biotech ingredients are also a lot less harsh on skin. They can be more effective. They, can be more gentle on your skin because you're in a controlled environment and the ingredient is consistent. And again, the environmental impact, it's important to me, of course, to own a physical product. It is my responsibility to, do everything I can to lessen my impact on the environment. I think most brand owners in any sort of consumer good, we have a responsibility to do everything we can.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of #Skinthusiasts, the podcast. Today, I am interviewing Carrie Barber. She is the co-founder of a brand that I personally love, Make Beauty. They have skincare, they have color cosmetics, and their formulations are really innovative. But I think what's so amazing about this episode is just hearing a little bit about how Carrie got from A to B. She actually started as the creative director at Sephora after never imagining that she was ever going to get into beauty. And she hopped around to places like Glossier and then Violet Grey, and she has just this robust knowledge of the beauty industry in a very creative way, from a very creative lens. So it's really cool to hear from her and her intentions with Make Beauty and their decision to use lab-grown natural ingredients instead of sourcing their ingredients straight from nature. And we talk about why that's really important, not only for our skin, but also for sustainability reasons. She's so down to earth. Like, when you're chatting with her, you would just never know that she has done so many amazing things because it just feels like you're talking to an old friend. So I hope that you guys really enjoy this episode as much as I really enjoyed recording it. I think this is probably one of my favorite recordings to date. So I hope you enjoy it. And without further ado, here's Carrie Barber. I start every podcast by asking my guests, what is your first skincare memory?
Probably the smell of Nivea cold cream that my grandmother used to use. She has a very basic skincare routine. She's 92, has gorgeous, gorgeous skin. And I think that the smell of Nivea just really is solidified in my brain. And also the very cold, thick texture of cold cream is my first skincare memory.
There's something so soothing and nostalgic about cold cream. It just feels like it should be good for your skin. And your skin's amazing. Oh my gosh, absolutely glowing. Do you feel and you said your grandmother has amazing skin. Do you feel like genetically your family is blessed with great skin, or do you attribute it all to your routine?
I definitely say genetics plays a role. Both my mom and my grandmother have really great skin, and they're of that generation too where they didn't really use sunscreen and probably some baby oils. So and my mom doesn't get any work done, my grandmother certainly doesn't either, and they both have really gorgeous skin that I feel like just looks very good for their age, and they take good care of it now. But it's genetics, and then of course maintenance with, for me, it's maintenance with tools or dermatologists, and then a consistent skincare routine, of course.
Amazing. Yeah, we're going to get into that because your skin is it's blowing me out of the water here, so I can't wait to hear about it. But I want to talk a little bit about your career first because it's really impressive. And I was watching your YouTube channel for Make Beauty. You have a little series on there when you launched the brand, which is so cute, really, really cool if anyone has a chance to check it out. But you have had an impressive career. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey from, maybe out of high school to here? How'd you get here?
Yeah, so it was kind of an accident. I didn't, when I was late in my senior year of high school, I thought I was going to be an athlete, and that was my plan. That's everything I was focused on. And then I just decided that wasn't really what I wanted to do anymore. And, my parents were like, okay, so it's April and you're about to graduate. What are you going to do? And I was always creative. So I was like, oh, I'll go to fashion school. I'll try that. Because at the time I didn't know, beauty wasn't really a career. I didn't know what an art director was or a creative director. I didn't know any of that. But I really, I would flip through magazines and I was looking at the editorials and just thinking I want to be the person who creates this image. I don't want to be the photographer necessarily, but I want to create this world. And sort of tried a lot of different things in order to eventually figure out, oh, that's what an art director does. So I went to 3 colleges total. I went to FITM, I went to Otis, which is an art school in LA, and then I graduated from the Academy of Art. They had an art direction for advertising career, and I was like, oh, that seems right, like the art direction part, but not the advertising. So I took a bunch of different classes, and at that time, this was like 2012, 11, and Nick Knight out of London was doing these incredible fashion films, and he made, I don't know if you remember this or saw this show, but Lady Gaga did her first like stadium tour, and she had all these interlude films that were incredible. And I remember being like, that is what I want to do. So I graduated from college and was going to move to London. My boyfriend at the time was like, well, maybe you should like get a job to make some money before you do that. And I was living in San Francisco, and Sephora corporate is up there. So I was like, that's cool. They had an opening for a production designer, and I was like, I'll do that. And then once I got there, I was like, oh, this is it. Like, actually, beauty is beauty. This was also the time of, like, I think Instagram had just launched. This was the time of Into the Gloss and also Violet Grey. So I was like immersed in all of that and just became obsessed with it. And here we are.
It's so cool. So you were with Sephora, but you also worked with Glossier and Violet Grey. Is that right?
Yeah.
So Sephora was your first job, and then where did you transition from there?
So after Sephora, I was so obsessed with Into the Gloss. I thought that it was at that time, it was how I got all of my like beauty recommendations. I didn't know a lot about beauty. I wasn't someone in high school who wore a lot of makeup or had a skincare routine. So it was like a whole new world, and I feel like it was my encyclopedia in a lot of ways. And I was like, I will find a way to work for Emily Weiss. And, this is pre-Glossier days, so I had no idea that they were going to launch a brand. And I was like, I'll just move to New York and I will find a way. So I moved to New York. I had 2 jobs before that. And then the agency I was working at the time was across the street from the Glossier office. And I remember them launching and, running around Soho, hand delivering product. And a few months later, their creative director, who I had one coffee with, reached out and was like, I don't know if you've heard of this brand. We're looking for a digital art director. Would you be interested? And I wrote back, like, there's no one more interested than me. Like,
I love that.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. It was like, it's just not, when I was like, oh, I'll find a way to work for Emily, I never thought that, that would be the way. And this was very early in Glossier days. So for me, it was the perfect time to work there. And the same thing kind of happened with Violet Grey also. I just knew like there was I wanted to work with Cassandra in some capacity. And after I moved to LA, Emily actually introduced me to Cassandra, and that it sort of happened in the same way. She's like, we're looking for an art director. Like, are you free? And I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm available.
That's amazing. And we're going to get to Make Beauty your brand, but one thing I didn't realize until I started doing some research for this episode was your creative director background. And it makes sense why all of your campaigns and your mailers and everything are so beautiful and intricate and really so intentional. And it kind of all came together in my head. But I want to talk a little bit about, where did you learn to do makeup? Because if you grew up, I also grew up not really that interested in skincare and makeup. It was kind of the last thing on my mind. Still to this day, I don't wear a ton of it. But it's, I have a similar path to how I came to love beauty. So when did you learn to actually be able to do makeup so well?
So I think, I've always been able to do my own makeup in a very specific way. Okay. Like I wouldn't say that pre-make, I wouldn't say my makeup was great. And also I think this is before even TikTok really took off. There wasn't a lot of I wasn't like a YouTube girl who's, Googling how to do a cat eye. I was just like, I'll just smudge it and that's my look, like I'll make it work.
Mhm.
But it wasn't honestly, until I owned a brand and I was like, I better learn how to do makeup. And it's just been practice in a lot of ways and social media, like Instagram, TikTok. Recently, I've started a YouTube show where I have makeup artists come on, like I love learning from makeup artists. So it's really just been over the last 4 years, it's been a lot of trial and error. And I also think that having to, create reels or TikToks on your phone while you're doing makeup is sort of like the most challenging way to learn how to do your makeup, because not only does it has to look good, but you have to be able to do it on camera. And it's just been a lot of trial and error, and I learned from the internet basically.
I remember when Make first started, you did a video with Susan, and it was so cute and endearing. And first of all, you're amazing at social media, but it was really cool to see you from the beginning when you kind of like started and you weren't super comfortable with it and like, well, okay, what do I do? And now to see you, like, you're just killing it. You're doing such a great job. I know it's so unnatural, right? Like social media is unnatural, especially when we didn't grow up with it in our pocket like kids now do. So I get it, but
I was never, before Make, I was not a like forward-facing person, even on Instagram. I had kind of like that, aesthetic Instagram. And my business partner, Ben, was very much like, you have to be like on camera. You have to be out there. You need to show your face. You have to let go of this like cool girl aesthetic that you have. Like you gotta, people need to know who you are and hear your voice and, see your face. And how to make it was actually a big part of that. He was like, we need to like let people in and show them like who you are, not this like idea that you've created, on a social media feed. So it's definitely taken a lot of practice, and now it's like, oh, I'm getting ready, I'll just film something really quick. It becomes kind of second nature.
Would you say that would be your advice to anybody starting a brand of any kind, to be forward facing?
I think so. I think it depends sort of on the brand, but in beauty and with new brands, I think that if you're starting a new brand, you have to have a really strong point of view. And I think always people want to have a connection to the person who's creating the brand. Beauty is such an emotional thing. And I also think that the beauty industry is about that sort of emotional connectedness. And I, as a consumer, like, I want to feel connected to other brand founders. And as a brand founder, one of the most rewarding parts of my job is being able to talk to people on DMs or in real life and have that connection. And it, like for me, it's really fulfilling because for the most part, people are like very excited about product, and they, tell me that they love the concealer or the, brow gel. And, I could like build my brand and do everything I'm doing, but it doesn't like mean as much if there aren't customers or, consumers who are like, I love what you're doing. And you're like, it's so validating because you're like, well, I'm doing this for you, for that, because I want you to feel that way. So I think it's important for the brand. It's important for consumers to feel connected. But, for me personally, that's like one of the most rewarding parts of my job. And I think a lot of founders feel that way. So if you're starting a brand, even if you're shy, you can do it.
Yeah,
Put
it
yourself
takes
out there.
practice, but people want to hear from you. And I think just being yourself will take you so far. So I want to chat a little bit because you've been really open about your childhood and your struggles with dyslexia. Do you think that this struggle when you were young and then later your intense dedication to sports, do you think those two things had anything to do with preparing you for what you do today in any way?
Yeah, I think so. With dyslexia, I think it kind of forces you to find a different way to get to the same end goal. So, I couldn't really read until I was in high school, but I had to sit in class and go to school and, pretend basically that I was, caught up or find ways to sort of keep up with everybody else. And I think that inherently kind of is like an entrepreneur mindset where you're finding a different way to get to an end goal. And it definitely made me more creative. I think that it allows me to think of to know that there are multiple ways to do something to solve problems, which is ultimately what owning a business is solving problems. And I think the confidence from knowing that regardless of the problem, I can figure it out. And that's, I say that now. I didn't necessarily feel that way in high school, but I think that sort of taught me that I can figure it out and there's more than one way to do something. And I think too, being an athlete, it teaches you to like be very dedicated to something that takes a lot of, like your physical energy and also like stamina, which again is part of owning a business. I think is, yes, it's hard work, but it's nonstop and you just have to have the stamina to consistently do it. So I think both of those things, I didn't know it at the time, but I think both of those things really helped me, become the person who I am and be able to take on owning a business and be an entrepreneur and also be creative, because I am very much like, I don't want to do it that way. I want to find my own way to do it. And that's definitely from growing up.
And I think that really shows in Make. Like I said, in the visuals, in the products, everything is just a bit different than what we've seen before. So I think that absolutely shows. Can you tell us a little bit about the process of reviving Make Beauty? Because I'm sure probably many people don't know the origins of the brand and how you came on board, basically.
So yeah, Make was originally founded in 2013 and, was one of the very first indie brands of this kind of wave of indie brands that is now definitely a part of the beauty industry. And I think that they were always just a little bit ahead of their time and sort of looking at kind of what was next in terms of innovation. So my partner, Ben, and I, that was very much something that we wanted to bring into relaunching the brand. And one of the taglines we use is look forward. And I think, for me personally, having worked in beauty, having worked at Sephora, at Glossier, at Violet Grey, I sort of, it was kind of, I was like, okay, what is next? Like we've done this decade of beauty that kind of feels, like we've done that and it's time to move on to what is next. So kind of using that original ethos from Make and, bringing it forward into what we're doing, I really wanted to create a brand that felt like we were like going into the next phase of beauty. So, I think when we use that in terms of formulation with biotech ingredients, we really, with the cosmetics, really try to create formulas that feel very special and also, again, like really push the pigment, which I think a lot of clean brands haven't done in the past, just given the limitations with clean ingredients and especially pigment. And then also, in terms of sort of the overall vibe of the brand, it's important to me that it does feel different. And, a lot of the things that I see now, it's like, okay, I've already done that work that, that's been there, done that kind of thing. So I try to push myself and we try to push the brand to be different and to be a little bit more innovative and forward-looking for that reason.
And how do you approach the skincare versus the makeup? Because you have both. Is it 50-50? Do you have equal SKUs of both? Is one like the priority over the other? How does that work?
So there's definitely more, at this point, definitely more color than there is skincare. We wanted to start with skincare because I think at the time, a lot of brands were either one or the other, especially in the clean space. And so, I felt like it was important for us to have both. Skincare really tells that story of biotech ingredients. And I think it allows us to really showcase very innovative formulas. And I also, skincare is something that is very important to me. It's fundamental to any good application of makeup. You can't have one without the other. I mean, you can have skincare without makeup, but you can't have makeup without good skincare.
Mhm.
And, I think too, it was important to create really innovative luxury formulas at a very accessible price point. So it just felt like the right thing to do to start with skincare. But now, a full, we have a, color product for every category with
Mhm.
the launch of eyeshadow. Now we've sort of checked off the first box of each category. And I would say that Make was always known as a color brand, and it was important. Like, we knew that it was going to continue to be a color brand, but it is still important to have really beautiful skincare products. So, we do focus on color a lot. We launch more color than we do
Mhm.
skincare, but our skincare is still very popular, and,
Yeah.
it's still a priority. It's just not as frequent as color.
Yeah. And can you tell us a little bit about kind of your decision to lean into these like lab engineered natural ingredients
Yeah,
and what
so
that even means? Because people probably don't even understand.
yeah. So a lab engineered natural ingredient it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a natural ingredient that is synthetic and made in a lab. However, chemically they are identical. So it also is it has much less impact on the environment. One example I like to use is we have a ridge cream called Supercell, and it's got orchid stem cells in it that are lab engineered. So rather than continuously harvest orchids and, the impact that that has on the environment, we have, the lab has taken stem cells from one orchid, cloned them, and you sort of create the ingredient as you need it, which I also think is more sustainable for the environment and also, you know, produces less waste. So that's one example of what, we call it Lenny, this like Lenny concept, but
Hmm.
also using upcycling ingredients like in the essence that we have the rice essence, that rice water is, like basically like if it wasn't upcycled, it would be waste. So we take that
Hmm.
and we use it, and ferment it and are able to not waste it and use it in product. So I think I think biotech ingredients are also a lot less harsh on skin. They can be more effective. They, can be more gentle on your skin because you're in a controlled environment and the ingredient is consistent as long as you're making it. And again, the environmental impact, it's something that I think it's important to me, of course, to own a physical product. It is my responsibility to, do everything I can to lessen my impact on the environment. And most I think most brand owners in any sort of consumer good, like, we have a responsibility to do everything we can. So that's kind long story short, that's kind of, why I think biotech is integrated so much into make.
I love that because that's something I think about often. There's so much product in the world, right?
Yeah.
So to start a new brand and then add to that, you do have to kind of grapple with that and find ways that you're going to almost make up for it a little bit, right? Like
Yeah.
how are you going to balance that out? But also, I mean, many of the people listening to this podcast are very skin savvy, but I would say the average consumer automatically thinks that natural is better for the skin. And as you mentioned, it really is safer for the skin when we can control that environment and remove some of the factors that can cause irritation and things like that, because a lot
Yeah.
of naturally found ingredients can be very irritating to the skin. So
Yeah.
whenever you're able to engineer them in a way that makes it a little bit safer for the skin, that's a win-win.
Yeah. And I think too, when you take something into the lab and you're sort of creating it, you're able to modify it in a way that makes it more effective and less irritating. Like the rice essence, for example, it's fermented. And, what I learned is that when you do that, the molecules get much smaller and it is able to penetrate your skin more. And fermenting is, well, I actually think that fermenting is kind of like a hot topic in the
Hmm.
skincare community. It kind of depends who you ask, but you know, you're eh, there's a lot of benefits to fermenting product, and creating smaller molecules is one of them. So I think, and also in our lactonic serum, that also, it's a vitamin C serum, but we're using a derivative of vitamin C that is less irritating through this kind of like biotech process. And that's something that's been super interesting to me because I didn't know any of this before I started. And I think, not only are you, you know, not only do you have the benefits that, I just mentioned, but it allows me to learn and also to be able to educate and teach other people, like this is actually better for your skin and here's why. It's more effective and this and that. And also like really helps with price point because you're not, you're taking things and you're sort of manipulating them and making them, you're using less, but they're more effective, which also
Hmm.
helps with the price. So
This episode is brought to you by, well, me. Skinthusiast.com is your one-stop shop for all things skin, hair, and beauty. I have countless blog posts to educate you on all the skin concerns and most common skin questions I receive. We also have a complete skincare basics guide on our shop page, as well as the cutest In My Skin era crew necks. If you want to support the show, please head over to skinthusiast.com/shop, and don't forget to rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts. Yeah, again, it's a win-win, right? It helps with the price. It's more sustainable,
yeah,
kind of checks all those boxes.
yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your own personal skincare routine. What are you doing? Do you have an extensive routine? Do you have a very simple one? Which products are you using?
I have a very simple routine. I am of the mindset that you should do less and use products that are effective and gentle. I think for so long, I maybe bought into this idea of having a very extensive routine, or a lot of times like just wanted to use products. So I was like, oh, I'm going to try this thing and that thing. And it was too much. My skin was very irritated. I've dealt with acne in my life. I, also hormones, of course, change skin. So there's lots of phases. But I think in general, I try to keep it very simple. My routine is in the morning, I kind of do like splash water on my face. I hydrate with either the rice essence, or I really actually like the Rhode glazing milk. I feel like that
Yeah, I
is,
love that one too.
it's
I love both of those
so,
products. They're both great.
yeah. I really love rich textures.
Hmm.
I use rich cream. I like really creamy serums. I like thick serums. And that glazing milk it's rich and it's light, which I really like about that. And the glow is really nice too. And I think it lays a good foundation for, moisturizer. Like it works really well with the Make Supercell, which is my number one favorite cream of all time. Like it is,
Oh,
I
okay.
keep telling like keep telling everyone, I'm like, can you guys send me like a lab jar of that? Like I need the super size, of Supercell.
Hmm.
um yeah, so I use an essence, the rice essence or the glazing milk, and then I use the lactonic serum, and then I'll use Supercell in the morning. Lately, I've been using the new plumping serum, the peptide serum that we just launched called Subverse, kind of integrating that into my routine. So currently, I have more steps than I have had normally. I'm kind of like a
Hmm.
two-step girl.
Hmm.
But, and then at night, I double cleanse with the Make oil cleanser and the succulent skin wash, which is another one of the skin wash is such a special gel cleanser. That was one of the first products we formulated, and I was using gel cleansers before because I was having issues with acne and was using a gel cleanser that was very, very drying. And I was like, okay, can we have a gel cleanser that feels super soft? Like, doesn't feel like my skin is, gonna peel off after I'm done
Hmm.
washing my face. So I use those at night. And then I'll do the same sort of serums, the lactonic, the Subverse peptide serum, and Supercell. But 2 to 3 days a week, I'll add in, like, a more intensive acid. So I'll do either acid phase, which is the make exfoliating liquid, and I also really like the 8th day acid that they have. It's way more intense than the make acid, so I use it sparingly just to not
Mm-hmm.
irritate my skin. And then I'll do a series of, like, masks or treatments. I have the Solar Wave wand, which is one of my favorite devices of all time. I have a bunch of different red light, masks or panels now, which I actually really like those panels. The Current Body one is kind of like you can just lay it over your neck and, still be on your phone and not be blinded by
Yeah.
the the red light. And then I get facials consistently. That's something that I really need. I have skin that needs, I need extractions. I need someone
Mm-hmm.
to kind of clean my skin out. I'm at the point where I'm starting to think about using, oh my gosh, what's it called? Like a retinol or a
Mm-hmm.
tret. I just talked to Dr. Sam Ellis about this actually because I'm having issues with like comedones and
Mm-hmm.
on an extreme level. Like and not it's not something I've ever experienced before. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, Sam was in the office last week, and I was like, what's happening to my skin? I don't know. I've never had. And she was like, okay, I just think, your cell turnover is a little slow, and maybe it's time for a retinol. And
Yeah.
so I'm going to go see a dermatologist. I wish I could see her, but she's not here. But
Mm-hmm.
going to go see a dermatologist about that. And
Yeah.
yeah. So I like to keep it really simple. I'm also starting to notice that my skin doesn't bounce back like it used to, given that I'm in my mid-30s. So just trying to be mindful of that. And, again, I don't like to overdo it. I'd rather do less and underdo it than irritate my skin with too many actives.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a huge issue that's happening now, although I do see the pendulum swinging the other way a little bit with people kind
Yeah.
of getting smart about that and starting to simplify their routine. But I'm also a simple girl when it comes to skincare. I use the same things every day, and there are a few like tried and true basics that we just know they work. I
Yeah.
also want you to drop your brow routine because I'm a brow girl and your brows are incredible. And so is my audience, like, also is obsessed with brows. So tell us what you use. What's your whole routine?
So I'm lucky that genetically I have big eyebrows. I did overwax in high school and thankfully they grew back. So I'm like, blessing my angels for that. I I I kind of like go back and forth with brows. Recently I started seeing Christy Stryker who does like she kind of feathers brows. She uses a keratin treatment that really, for someone like me, I have really thick, dense eyebrows. So it's like a straightening, almost like you would put keratin in your hair.
Hmm.
And the first time she did it, I was like, I have that much brow hair. Like, how is that possible? Because it kind of like pulls every single brow hair out, and you can see all of them. And she also shapes them really well and tints them. So, I see her every 6 to 8 weeks just to kind of keep them, you know, fresh. And she also doesn't she's like, "Don't touch them in between," like, no
Hmm.
tweezing, no nothing. I do sometimes, like, the ones where I'm like, "Okay, it's so
For
far
sure,
from my
this one's
brow."
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's far enough. It's, like, outside of the zone. So and then I recently just started filling in my brows again too, which I hadn't done for so long. I use the Make Brow Pencil, and I've been really into nano brow pencils because I can very quickly overdo it with brows, and it looks too heavy. I want my brows to lift my face up and especially like open up my eyes and make me look awake. And I also think brows, I always tell this to people, like they are the frame for your face. So if I do nothing and could only do one thing, it's my brows. So I'll
Mhm.
either quickly fill them in and brush them up, or I use the Infinite Hold Brow Gel from Make every single day. That is such an incredible brow gel. I'm like impressed. I know that I, had a part in making it, but it's one of those things where I'll like use it and I'm like, this is just so good. I like, I love when that happens where I'm like, oh man, this is great. I'm so proud of us. Like this is such
Yeah.
a good brow gel.
I'm gonna have to try
Um,
that one because I have like a graveyard of brow gels because
mhm.
I also so I do like brow lamination and I'm way overdue. I'm going tomorrow. I cannot wait. I'm so excited. But I
Yeah,
see somebody in Miami who's like she's like the brow queen of Miami. So like
yeah,
similar thing. And I'm obsessed with her. But in between, I always need a gel. So
mhm.
that's a good recommendation because
Yeah.
people are always asking about brow gels.
I will send it to you. It is incredible. And it has such a special brush because, it's kind of an in between. It's not quite that like laminated brow gel texture. Like it's not glue
Hmm.
out of the component, but it has this like dual ended brush where you can one very short bristles so you can really get in there and like you can get on skin. But the formula doesn't like glue your brow to your forehead where you feel like, you can't move it around. And then the other side of the brush has longer bristles, so you can sort of feather out or, like really shape it in a way that I just think it just is, it's so perfect. It's so perfect. Like, it's great.
Oh,
I'll
good.
send it to you if you haven't tried it.
Yeah,
I
that's
think you'll really
exciting. I
like it.
think the audience is going to love to hear about it too. So we talked a lot about your favorite make skin products. Other than the brow gel, what are some like color products that like kind of a starter pack, I guess, if someone's new to the brand?
So I think that, complexion those are our best selling products. The concealer is our number one. Highly, highly recommend that. It's got a really, really nice texture. It has skin mimicking pigments, which, it kind of helps. You can put it on and leave it for, a few seconds and it starts to just kind of adjust the tones to where you're placing it. So, I when I use it in the summer and I'm a little darker, like not much, but slightly darker, it still is a match.
Mm-hmm.
And it has really nice medium coverage. It's buildable too, which I think, I don't like to cake on a lot of makeup, but you can do a few layers or leave it for up to a minute and it gets kind of a little more dry and, more coverage. But it's just got a beautiful finish. It doesn't crease. It, melts into skin. It's really beautiful. It's been a bestseller for a while. So I would start there. And
Okay.
also anyone who isn't sure about color matching, you can DM me. I do that all
Aw.
day. And the Make account, we love to help people color match. And then I think our multi-chromatic eyeshadow is also a bestseller and is pretty new, but it has been consistently in the top, one or two products with concealer since it launched. And, I am very much a person who wants to intentionally wear makeup. That's kind of like, I also don't wear a lot of makeup day to day, but if I'm gonna wear it, I want to wear it like makeup. And I think
Hmm.
eyeshadow is so fun and like it's a pretty easy, accessible thing to start with if you're doing eye. Like eyeliner is still 50-50 for me. I'm like, is today gonna be a good day for the wing or not? We're not sure. But eyeshadow, like I think it's easy and it makes a big impact and you can do a lot with it. And especially with this formula, it's so creamy and it has such a beautiful sheen. Like I wanted something that was really reflective and bright, but not glitter. So
Hmm.
I definitely recommend trying that. And there's a shade called Glaze that's kind of like a warm champagne-y color that I also like to use as a highlight. So that's like a hot tip. I haven't really put that on the internet yet, but hot tip. You can use that as a highlighter.
Perfect.
Um, and then I think, some of my personal favorite products are the mascara. I think that's kind of like a if you know, you know kind of product. It is really, it's really good. And for a clean mascara, it is like, there's a lot. It's a full look. So I really love that. The Serum Balm, that's like kind of an OG. There's also Serum Balm Intense, which has more pigment. that's another product where I will, I was using the Lip Reset, which is one of my favorite. It's like a very, very nice, thick lip mask. And then I
I
was
love
going
that
back
one. I
to,
have it next to my bed.
it is so
Yeah.
good. It is like, it's so good.
So unique. It's very
Yeah.
unique.
And it's not sticky, and it's got the perfect sheen, and it actually really hydrates. Like and it long lasting and tastes good. It's great. But I started using Serum Balm again more consistently, and that was one of those products too where I was like, God, this is good. This is so good. I love those moments where I'm like, oh man, I'm proud of us, you guys. We made this. Serum Balm has also been a bestseller since it launched, so I highly recommend that. And then I have to give a shout out to the Make setting powder, because I also think that's kind of like, if you know, you know. I've used setting powders for a long time. I have dry skin, so I would have issues with it feeling cakey or almost feeling like it was drying out my skin. And I would do a full face of makeup and then go to set it, and I'm like, where did my makeup go? Like it felt like it was covering it. And the Make Diffusion Set translucent powder is just, it's so finely milled that it feels like suede or velvet. It's super soft. It's very sheer, but it also I it it like blurs without dimming down your makeup, which I really appreciate, because again, I'm like sitting here doing a full face and then I'm like, where'd it go? Okay. It's under this powder. And it it controls oil really well, and it does that without ever feeling like you don't ever feel it on skin, and it never dries out your skin. It's infused with skincare ingredients, so it's got, it's like replenishing as well. It is that is in my top 5 for sure. That powder, it's wonderful. And it comes in 5 shades, so it's great. I highly recommend it.
Okay, we have some awesome recommendations here. There's like something for everybody. So
Yeah.
I'll make sure I'm going to put all that in the show notes so everyone can take a look. So I want to, before we wrap up, do a little rapid fire with you.
Okay.
So first question is, what's your least favorite beauty trend at the moment?
Least favorite. Oh man. And that's a good question. I almost want to say that I'm kind of like, I feel like I want to make sure that I'm going to say this right. But I'm going to say it because this is like my gut instinct, is that right now I feel like something I'm seeing on social media is like this, like these two camps that all these trends fall into, like a minimalist and a maximalist. And it's kind of like they're going head to head in a way where it's like, no, it's all about makeup, or, people doing a full beat or are kind of getting like flack for doing that. And in to me, it's kind of like we can do both. And it's really just about whatever anyone wants to do. I feel like it's not like one versus the other and one is better than the other. So maybe like, I don't know if that's necessarily a trend, but that's kind of like my least favorite thing happening now, where it's like, well, I'm this girly or I'm this girly, or like when the mob wife aesthetic thing came out, it was like, then it just turned into this whole kind of spiral of, appropriation, which of course I understand, but I was also like, it's just a full beat of makeup. We're not trying to be mob wives,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
sometimes I think it just goes a little too far.
Yeah, absolutely. Like everything on social.
Yeah.
And I think also just like normalizing that you can do both of those things. Like not only are both okay, but you can switch day by day. You can be a like skincare girly one day, who doesn't wear any makeup and just runs out the door with your tinted sunscreen. And the next day you could do a full beat if you want. It's all about like that expression.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think people should just be able to do what they want, like play. And if you want a full face that, is maybe reminiscent of, 2016, good for, you go for it. Like that is what beauty is for,
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. It should be playful. Okay,
Hmm.
so next question. What is your favorite beauty trend at the moment?
Favorite beauty trend. Maybe it doesn't have like a name, but I'm seeing a lot of emerald or like green eye looks, which I'm really into. And not that like martini, there was like maybe a martini olive eye look for a while,
Mm,
but this feels like a little bit more like it's a deeper green and it's more, yeah, like that, like forest green color. And it just, I'm seeing a lot of that. And I'm also seeing a lot of really bright blue eyeshadow, which I I love to see. I think that is so pretty. So I don't know that the trend necessarily has a name. I don't know if it's been named on TikTok yet, but like the greens and the blues with the eyeshadow, I think is really pretty. And I like how many different looks you can do with eyeshadow and just different placements. Like I think that's kind of like what I'm really into currently, even though it doesn't have a name.
are there any accounts, or maybe Make does this, I'm not sure, but anywhere that people can go for inspiration or even like tutorials for eyeshadow? Because I think for a long
Mm,
time, a lot of people weren't using eyeshadow at all. So
yeah.
now that it's really like having a moment and coming back, is there anywhere we can go to get some tips and tricks on it?
Yeah, I can send you some accounts because I can't
Okay,
think of them at the moment. Just
perfect.
want
Yeah,
to make
send them
sure I
to me
get
and I'll
their
put them
handles right.
below.
But
Yeah.
yeah. And also,
Okay.
I think any makeup artists really are. There's also a few very like a I have like a list of makeup artists who I follow that I just, I'll be like, "Oh, what should I do?" And I'll look at their accounts and maybe I should do some more eyeshadow
Yes, please
tutorials.
do. Because
Yeah.
the make ones are so beautiful and there's so many amazing shades. I would love to see how you use them.
Yeah, yeah. I'll definitely do that. I need to like I'm a little behind on filming right now, so I need to I gotta catch up, but
Yeah.
I love eyeshadow. There's just so many things you can do with it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to see because I am one of those people who wants to incorporate it more, but it feels very intimidating to me.
Yeah. Okay, good to know. Good to know. I will definitely
Okay,
film some videos.
awesome. Okay, I'll put those below as soon as we have links to this. Next rapid fire question. What is the biggest makeup application mistake that you're seeing?
I think I think with makeup application, it's kind of I think that it's about the balance of using both cream formulas and also powders. So, if you are someone who wants to have, you know, if you want to control oil and you want your look to last all day, you need to do a balance of both. And I think, of course, depending on your skin too, it's like if you're going to use all cream or liquid-based products, like your face is going to, be oily or maybe move around and not set as well. So I think it's, I'd love to see people incorporate more a balance of both and not just use one.
Yeah, that's a really great tip. I love that. Last question. What
Mhm.
is your most underrated skincare tip? Or let's say skin tip in general, because it could be a beauty tip if it's
Mhm.
makeup.
I feel like I mean I kind of already touched on this, but I think do less. Like
Hmm.
a lot of people will ask me for skincare advice or ask about certain skincare, and I could apply this to makeup as well, but with skincare, if you're having issues with your skin, I think do less. And again, irritation is usually from using too many active products and also like trying too many new things at once.
Hmm.
Like if I'm giving skincare advice, I am constantly telling people to do less and to use
Yep.
less active ingredients and really be gentle with your skin and also drink water. Um but I think with makeup too, like doing less, like that's how I wear makeup. For the most part, I do an eye and very clean skin or a lip and very clean skin. It's like I like to really focus on one pop of color. And again, there's no right way to do makeup, but that's how I wear makeup. And I also, I try to, I think that makes point of view in terms of color is kind of like one pop of color with beautiful like clean skin that looks like skin. So that's kind of my underrated philosophy.
No, I love that. I think that so many people are going to be happy to hear that because with so many skincare obsessed listeners, I think, like I said, beauty can be very intimidating. Color cosmetics
Yeah.
can be intimidating. So to have the permission to just focus on one area and then you can still keep, that dewy complexion that you love elsewhere, I think that's really like impactful and really beautiful. So that's a great tip. Okay, I said that was the last question, but I actually have one last question.
Okay.
If you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
Oh man. Oh, that's a good question. Man, I would say I would tell her to be less shy and not and be like be less shy and be less afraid of making mistakes, honestly. I think that was something I've learned recently about making mistakes and having to let go of being a perfectionist because you cannot own a business and be a perfectionist. You would never get anything done. And it's really allowed me to, also I, I didn't own a business. I didn't do, the majority of my job I had never done before. And I made a lot of mistakes and I embrace mistakes because that's the only way to learn. And you don't know unless you try. And, for the most part, the mistakes you make are not catastrophic. Like, knock on wood, I haven't made any catastrophic mistakes. And those are the things that I learn from the most and also help me solve problems in terms of owning a business. So that's what I would tell her.
I love that. I think those mistakes teach us so much and they really direct our lives in so many ways. I think back on mistakes that I've made and I wouldn't be here today without them. So I love that. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to chat with us today. I'm so excited for the audience to hear this one. I think the brand is so special and your point of view is much needed. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It was great chatting with you.
I feel like that episode was so packed full of amazing information. There were so many recommendations from Carrie. I'm going to put everything below, including the accounts that she recommends watching for beauty tips and her favorite skincare products. All of that's going to be below. And we also wanted to do a little bit of a Make Beauty giveaway with some of Carrie's favorite products that she mentioned. So to enter, all you have to do is like and comment on the IG reel that I'm going to post for this episode. You can just let us know, like, what was your biggest takeaway from this episode? What did you enjoy the most? And make sure you're following Make Beauty and me at Amy Coberling on Instagram. And next week, we'll pick one winner to win this awesome box of goodies. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. Please rate and review the show if you have a second. It really helps us to get to the ears of people who love skincare and beauty. And as always, I will see you next week, skin enthusiasts.